Hey everyone, the rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated. Alright, I'm just kidding, but things have been super busy for me this last little while, which is why I haven't been able to make any new content. I'm still around though, and things are still super busy, but I'm going to actually try and make more videos more regularly, so hang in there. I wanted to thank all my supporters of the channel for sticking with me all these years, and it's been great interacting with you guys, and you guys are still leaving comments on my videos, still watching them and stuff like that, and I really love interacting with you all, so keep those comments coming, right? And as a reminder, if you're not already a supporter of the channel, you can help the channel for free by liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment on any of my videos, like maybe even this one. And there might even be some content later on that you want to comment on. Alright, so today though, I wanted to send a special shout out to Ash473 for their comment about my Jumpstart cube. Right, so Ash473, your comments have inspired me to build more Jumpstart decks for the Jumpstart cube, and the next two videos that I'm going to make will be about me showing you guys what I came up with. So if you're watching, thanks a lot, you were an inspiration. Alright, so before we get into the decks themselves, let's go over some of the deck building guidelines that I've set up for designing my own Jumpstart decks. There's only 4 of them, and remember, they're more of a guideline than hard rules. Sometimes they're going to have to be broken. Alright, so the first is that each Jumpstart deck should have a theme to it. It shouldn't just be a random mishmash of cards in a given color. Themes give the deck flavor, and it's the mixing of these flavors that makes playing Jumpstart so much fun. So if you get rid of the themes, in my opinion, you get rid of the whole point of playing Jumpstart in the first place. Alright, the second thing is that we should keep the power level moderate. Right? We don't want to have anything super weak or super powerful, just a happy medium level. Alright, so this means building suboptimal decks sometimes, but balance is the name of the game, and one super powerful deck can leave a lot of bad feelings. And the same thing actually for a super weak deck as well. Alright, so along this line is the cost. Alright, I've tried to keep the cost low. Right, around below $10 for each of the decks, because otherwise the decks are going to get too powerful, and also the cube is going to be super expensive. And the idea around this cube is that you can make your own decks around your own cards, right, with what you have, and so you don't have to go and be spending like hundreds or thousands of dollars to try and put this together. Alright, and so to keep this accessible and playable, we're going to try and keep the cost low. Alright, finally, each deck shouldn't have too many 4-ofs. Right, so we're going to generally try and make things 1s and 2s of, although there are still some times where we're going to have to break that. And having 4 of in a deck will add a ton of consistency that other decks don't have, and it ruins the variance of the decks, and that kind of is part of the fun of making Jumpstart decks. So with that out of the way, let's go over the decks. The first deck that we're going to go over is a mono Black Knights deck. Now this deck was popular in Eldraine Standard, and it had actually a lot of 4-ofs as well, but I think this is actually a really fun one to play with some good synergies as well. So we're going to start off with a 1/1 for 1 with a Filemire Knight. This is a 1/1 with Death Touch, but also later on, if you get it, you can cast for 3 mana and use the instant Profane Insight, draw a card, and lose 1 life. Right? Paying 1 life to draw a card is not that bad, and so it's not really a feel bad card if you draw it late in the game. We got a Black Lance Paragon, a 2-mana 3/1 with Flash, and when it enters the battlefield, you can gain Death Touch and Lifelink till end of turn, which means that, let's face it, you're probably going to put it on this creature, but any one of these other knights could end up getting it if it's one of the ones that you just wanted to like give up on. So it could be like later on like an Oathsworn Knight that's like powered down or whatever, and you can flash this in, give him Death Touch, and let him take out one more creature before he dies. Right, we got Order of Midnight, which is I think probably one of the best cards in the deck, because you can return a target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, and then later on this becomes a 2-mana 2/2 with flying, which is already pretty sweet. Right, we got Smitten Swordmaster, and so when Smitten Swordmaster enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of knights you control. This could be super deadly. Like if you have 5 knights out, your opponent can lose 5 life, you gain 5 life, and then later on it becomes a 2-mana 2/1 with lifelink. But if it dies, then later on you can use Order of Midnight to bring it back, and then you can do it all over again. Right? We also have Bell of the Brawl. Bell of the Brawl is a 3-mana 3/2 with Menace, and when it attacks other knights you control, get +1/+0 till end of turn. right? Murderous Rider is basically a 3 mana 2/3 with lifelink. But the important thing also is that it comes with Swift End, so you can use it to destroy target creature or planeswalker, and then you lose 2 life for that. But then later on, you just have to swing with it one time, and you get the life back. Okay, we got an Oathsworn Knight, which is a 3 mana 4/4. Now, this is kind of a weird card, but it enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it, and it must attack every combat. But if you would deal damage to it, it actually doesn't lose life, it actually just takes off a counter, right? And then once you removed all the counters, then it just becomes a 0/0 and it's dead, right? But again, you can do a lot of things with that, like you can get Order of Midnight, right, and bring it back if you so choose. All right, so we got Locthwain Paladin. Locthwain Paladin is a 3 mana or 4 mana 3/2 with Menace, but if you cast it for 4 or 3 black mana, it comes in with as a 4/3 because it gets a +1/+1 counter. And let's face it, if you're playing this deck, it's mono black. It shouldn't be too hard to cast it with 3 black mana. All right, so we got Sir Conrad the Grim, which is a 5 mana 5/4, and this is actually a pretty good card because it weaponizes the death of your creatures. Right, so when your creatures die, then they go to the battlefield, and Sir Conrad will deal 1 damage to each opponent. And it's not just your creatures, but even your opponent's creatures as well. Alright, finally, we've got Epic Downfall, which just exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or greater. We have Bake Into a Pie, which is destroy target creature and creates a food for you. And then we have Wishclaw Talisman, which I thought was kind of a nice include because it allows you to search your library for a card that you want. Now your opponent's going to get to do it as well, but if they do it, then you get it back and you'll get another search. So you get to search twice, your opponent gets to search once. But I think it's pretty good. Finally, we have 7 Swamps and 1 Thriving Moor. And once again, you can always substitute this for an Evolving Wilds or a Vivid Marsh or whatever. And this card is replaceable if it's not available to you or if it's out of your budget. Right? It shouldn't be too bad. Only 65 cents. The next deck that we're going to look at is the Mono White Auras deck. Now, what this deck wants to do is get down a whole bunch of cheap evasive creatures and then just stack a whole ton of enchantments on them, and that should be enough to get us into the win. So what we have is we are going to start off with an Alseid of Life's Bounty. That's going to be a 1 mana 1/1 with lifelink, but you can also sacrifice it and give another creature protection, because if we're going to stack everything on one of our creatures, then we want to be able to protect that creature, and Alseid of Life's Bounty can do that for us. Right, in a pinch, it can also be the creature that we stack the enchantments on, but it's not really ideal for that. Okay, we've got Beloved Princess, which is a 1 mana 1/1 with lifelink. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater, so it can squeak by and sneak through some of the bigger blockers, and it also has lifelink as well. Right, we've got Fairy Guidemother, which also can give a creature +2/+1 with flying, and then later on is a 1/1 for 1 flyer also. We got Giant Killer, which can help us to destroy a creature, but then later on it can also help us to tap down our opponent's creatures as well and keep that pesky big guy off the board or just out of the way for us to swing through. Okay, we got Silver Flame Squire as a 2 mana 2/1, right? But it also comes with the instant ability, so a target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and you can untap it, which can be a surprise for our opponent by suddenly untapping a blocker. Right, we have Ardenvale Tactician, which is a 3 mana 2/3 flyer, but also comes with the ability to tap up to 2 target creatures. Then usually that's going to be the ones our opponents control, and that might allow us again to swing in for the big hit and give us the win. Finally, we have Realmcloak Giant, which is a 7 mana 7/7. This is going to be a little bit hard to play because it's just so expensive, but the 5 mana cost is destroy all non-giant creatures, but we don't have any giants, right, except for the Realmcloak Giant, right? So ideally this is going to be our board wipe, which is going to kill basically everything. We generally don't really want to use this unless we absolutely have to, but we can, if things get really bad, we can destroy all non-giant creatures and then later on throw down a Realmcloak Giant and just finish out the game that way as well. Alright, finally we have Karametra's Blessing, which can give a creature a +2/+2 till end of turn, and then because we're going to have a lot of enchanted creatures, that creature could also get indestructible. So before you go and blow up the board, for instance, you could use Karametra's Blessing, and then give your creature indestructible, blow up the board, and then you just basically have your Voltron or your Aura creature out. Alright, now I've chosen 5 different enchantments. We have Ethereal Armor, so a creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, and also has First Strike. We got Spirit Link, which whenever a creature deals damage, you gain that much life. Now remember though, this is not lifelink. This actually stacks with lifelink, right? So if you put this on, say, let's say your Alseid of Life's Bounty, right? Then whenever it gets lifelink and does damage, this Spirit Link will also give it that much life also. So it's like a double lifelink. Right, we have All That Glitters, which gives a creature +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment that you control. A Sentinel's Mark, which gives a creature +1/+2 and has Vigilance. But the good thing about this also is that it has Flash, so you can also just kind of hold up mana and use it at your opponent's end step as well. Right, and then finally we have Spirit Mantle, which gives your creature +1/+1 and has protection from creatures, which is just the final form of evasion, and then we can just swing through for the win with those. Right, finally we have 6 plains and 1 Vivid Meadow. This would normally be Thriving Heath, but I don't have that card, and if you have it then great, but otherwise a Vivid card will go just fine in there. Now this is kind of where the 4 of rule came in. Optimally we would actually choose to play way more things like All That Glitters and Ethereal Armor, but I think that would actually make the deck way less consistent or way more consistent and way more competitive, and probably this sort of Aura's build would be almost unstoppable if we did that. So in that way I kind of nerfed it a bit and only gave it 1 of All That Glitters.
The next deck that I'd like to go over is one that I've called Jorvos Hunt, and basically the theme is that Jorvo is hunting with his pack of wolves. So what we have is a 4 of Timberpack Wolf. Now here I'm breaking the 4 of rule, but it's because Timberpack Wolf gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control named Timberpack Wolf, and it would be kind of stupid if you didn't have more than 1 Timberpack Wolf. So it makes sense in this deck that you pretty much have to have 4 of them in there. Right, the next one is a Nyxborn Wolf, which is basically a bestow creature. So what you can do is you could cast this for 5 if you want, and it can give another creature +3/+1, or you can cast it as a creature and then it would just be a 3/1 for 3, which is fine as well. Right, we have a Rot Wolf next, which is a 2/2 for 3 with Infect, and then whenever a creature dealt damage by Rotwolf this turn is put into a graveyard, you may draw a card. So there could be a lot of ways for us to actually just get extra card draw out of this, especially because it has Infect, and we could actually just kill another small creature. Okay, we got Jorvo, of course, and so Jorvo is a 3 mana, and when it enters the battlefield it comes with 4 +1/+1 counters on it, so it's a 3 mana 4/4. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Jorvo, and then if that creature's power is greater than Jorvo's power, you can put another +1/+1 counter. Now that's probably not going to happen, mainly because Jorvo's power will be so much greater than the wolves, but he will get bigger just because the wolves are entering the battlefield, because they're all green wolves. The next thing we have is a Nightpack Ambusher, which is an interesting one because it's a 4 mana with Flash, and we get a 4/4. And then if you don't do anything on your turn, so the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast any spells, you get a 2/2 green wolf. So sometimes you're going to end up in the game and you just have nothing else to do, right? So if you just sit there your turn, right, and you don't cast any spells, then you can also get another 2/2 wolf out of this. Now, following this, we got a 3 of Aspect of Wolf. So here you can enchant a creature where it gets +X+Y, and this is a very interesting card, is where X is half the number of forests you control rounded down, and Y is half the number of forests you control rounded up. Now, in this deck, especially because there's only 7 forests, the most you could ever get would be 3. Right, 3 rounded down, so that would be +X, and 4 rounded up would be power, so it would be +3/+4. But that's actually pretty impressive if you can put that onto like a Rotwolf. You can make it like a 5/6 or something like that. So these aspects of wolves can actually make something pretty powerful, but I don't think it's overpowered because you don't have like tons and tons of forests. Now if you were to combine this with another green deck, then this could be really devastating. And then finally we have a Howlpack Resurgence, which is each creature controlled that's a wolf or a werewolf gets +1/+1 and has trample, and it also has flash. So again, you can flash this in, and if you wanted to make this a little more powerful, I think what you could do is you could actually have 4 of these and get rid of the aspects of wolf. And the cost would not be that much, right? It would actually be cheaper to do it that way, right? But I'm not sure if this would make things just too powerful in the deck, because every wolf then could potentially have like +4/+4, right? And then also you could also flash it in, meaning you're playing always on your opponent's end step or on your opponent's turn with this. So I'm not sure if that would make it better, or I think it would actually make it more powerful, but it's up to you if you want to increase the power level. Deck number 4 is a deck that I like to call Pukas Mischief. Now, Pukas Mischief is a deck that's a little bit different than all the other decks that I've shown so far, in that it doesn't try to win on its own, but rather it tries to steal your opponent's win conditions. So let's take a look at how it works. First thing is we have a good defense, and so we have a Fog Bank, and Fog Bank is just a 2-mana 0/2 defender with flying and prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by Fog Bank. So it can't be killed by combat damage. It has to be burned or destroyed in some other way. That's going to help to keep you in the game. Now, we also have things like Mana Tithe, right? So counter target spell unless its controller plays 1. Stern Dismissal, which is just return a target creature, enchantment, and opponent controls to its owner's hand, or counter spell. And that's going to try and keep us in the game for a little while we set up everything else. We also are playing Assault Skitter, but I'll talk about that shortly. Now, the main part of the deck is this card called Pukas Mischief. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exchange control of target non-land permanent you control and target non-land permanent and opponent controls with an equal or lesser mana cost. So what that means is that at the beginning of your upkeep, you can take one of your things, one of your permanents that's not a land, and trade it with one of your opponent's things, and they do not get to choose or approve, as long as it has the same or less mana cost. And so then what we do is we play things like Salt Skitter. So whenever another creature comes into play, remove Salt Skitter from the game. Return Salt Skitter to play under its owner's control at the end of turn. Now this is a 4-mana card for a 3/4, but what it does is it blinks out and then it comes back under its owner's control, not under its controller's control. And so what we can do is use our Pukas Mischief to trade the Salt Skitter, and then what we can do is then just trade it away. Right? Trade the Salt Skitter to our opponent, and if our opponent plays another creature, then Salt Skitter will come back down, or will leave and then come back to us, and we can trade it again. Now, the other things we have are all these terrible enchantments. So what we have is Journey to Nowhere. So Journey to Nowhere is a way to just take out one of our opponent's things and lock it up. We have a Seal Away, again, Banishing Light. So 3-mana enchantment, Detention Sphere, Oblivion Ring, and Stasis Snare, all 3-mana things. Now, what this means is that we can actually trade for all of our opponent's stuff that's 3 mana or less, which is going to be most of their stuff. Right? And then eventually we could just use that to get rid of all their stuff. So let's say they play like Jorvo, for instance, from my previous deck, right? Then we can use, like, for instance, Oblivion Ring to get rid of Jorvo, and let's say they play one of the wolves. Then you could trade the Oblivion Ring for one of their wolves with Jorvo underneath it, right? And that's actually kind of how this whole deck works. The other thing is that the land base for this is a little bit weird because it's a 2-color one. We need to get the colors online. So here we have an Azorius Guildgate, Evolving Wilds, a couple of Islands and Plains, Tranquil Cove, Vivid Creek, and Vivid Meadow. Now, again, we really need the mana to be kind of weird in this one, mainly because it's just such an odd type of deck. But this is actually a super fun one to play, especially in multiplayer. The final deck in today's video is going to be one that's just basically a green Stompy version of our White Enchantments deck. So essentially we have Burning Tree Emissary, which is essentially a free creature, Nest Invader, which is a 2-mana 2/2, but when it enters the battlefield you get a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn that can be sacrificed for more mana. We got River Boa, which can be regenerated and has Island Walk, which can be useful. We have Silhana Ledgewalker, which is a 2-mana 1/1, but it can't be blocked except by creatures with flying, and it can't be the target of spells or abilities, so hexproof. Vault Scourge, which we can get for just paying 1 and 2 life. It's a 1/1 flyer with lifelink, so we can get the life back. We have Endraze Forerunners, which is our finisher here, which is a 7/7 for 8, but also has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste, and it gives all our other creatures +2/+2 in Vigilance and Trample till end of turn.
Now, to make these creatures a little bit better, what we're going to do is try and stack enchantments on them. So we have Rancor, which is a 1 mana enchantment. This gives our creatures +2/+0 and has trample. But when it's put into the graveyard, it just comes back to our hand. So if the creature that's carrying it dies, then we just get the Rancor back, which is super useful. We got Sixth Sense. So whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you can draw a card, which is actually a very good ability, especially for green. Right, we got Rune of Might. Rune of Might enters the battlefield. Again, we get to draw a card. As long as the enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+1, it has trample. And as long as its permanent is an equipment, which it's not, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, we got Ancestral Mask, which is one of the best green enchantments they have. Enchantment creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield, not just the ones you control. Even if your opponent puts enchantments on the battlefield, your creature gets boosted up. We get Blanchwood Armor, so enchant creature, it gets +1/+1 for each forest you control. And then we also have Hydra's Growth, and you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature, and then it also doubles the number of +1/+1 encounters on the creature each turn. Right? And so these can be really devastating. So you put this on one of your evasive creatures, and any one of them could be really hard to deal with unless your opponent can just remove it right away. But we do have other threats, and so it's possible to get a bunch of threats and put these on different things and just overwhelm our opponent because a lot of our creatures are evasive. After that, we have the 7 forests and 1 thriving grove, and that is pretty much that deck. Pretty simple to play, but still pretty fun. So that's it for the decks in this round. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the video. And also please leave a comment. I really want to know, what was your favorite deck? What did you think of the decks? And do you have an idea for another deck in Jumpstart that I could make? That would be awesome. All right, so stay tuned. I'm going to be coming out with another video with more decks later. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.